Hello and welcome to the live session of the NPTEL MOOCs course on development research methods. I welcome all the enrollees of this course over the period of the last few minutes. Please feel free to post your questions on the YouTube channel that is there. Hello, or you can type out your answers. You can also put in your questions in the Google Sheet shared with you. To begin with, let me take a few questions that we have already received. There are a number of questions on the exam pattern. Please go through the details that are there on the discussion forum, as well as the NPTEL platform regarding the questions pattern. Mostly there will be multiple choice questions, a similar pattern that you have seen in your assignments. There are a number of questions on the exam pattern. Please go through the details that are there on the discussion forum, as Okay, let me take one questions on that I have received from Girish V. On the question is he would like to know more difference and similarity between stratified random sampling and quota sampling techniques. So I think the question that you are posing is you want to know what is the difference and similarity between stratified random sampling and quota sampling. Okay, so the difference is basically in the term random. When we talk about stratified random sampling and quota sampling, these are basically two different types of sampling altogether, in the sense that stratified random sampling is primarily a probability sample or a probability sampling technique, whereas quota sampling is a non-probability sampling technique. Now, see, for example, what is the meaning of probability sampling technique here? Basically, when you're taking a sample from a population and you are numbering each and every person in that population, or each and every individual in that population, there is an equal chance of each and every individual appearing in the sample in the case of random sampling. Whereas in the case of quota sampling, we do not have an equal opportunity for each of the individuals to appear in the sample. Rekha, can you mute the voice from your end, because I can hear a lot of background voice coming from your end of my own voice. Can you please mute it from that side? Yeah, that's better. Thank you. Okay, so what I was saying is, in the case of stratified random sampling, we are basically following a probability sampling method, whereas in the case of quota sampling, we are following a non-probability probability sampling method. Now, probability sampling method is nothing but the fact that we are carrying out a random process, or in the sense that each and every member of the sample, or each and every observation in the sample is being gathered through a random process, which means that each and every individual has an equal chance of appearing in the sample. Now, imagine you are trying to conduct a certain study, a certain survey in a certain village, which has all agricultural households, farming households, and you want to estimate some kind of a farm business incomes for all of these agricultural households. So imagine that you have 100 such households. Now, what you could do if you are carrying out a simple random sampling, what you would do is you would number each and every individual in this population of 100 from 1 to 100, and you carry out a lottery method of choosing. Let us say you decide on a sample of 50, so you can, through a lottery method, choose 50 such members from the population of 100 and then estimate your farm business incomes. Now, this is a very simple example of how simple random sampling is carried out. But suppose, let us say that on deeper study, you find that this population of agricultural households can be categorized based upon various subgroups. Let us say that you have, of these 100 households, you have about 50 small farmer households. You have about another 25 marginal farmer households, and you have another 25 large farmer households. Now, a simple assumption that can be taken is that large farming households, 25 households, would probably have a higher level of income. Now, if you are carrying out a simple random sampling method and you end up by chance choosing a sample which, and you need to collect a sample of 50 observations, and by chance all the 50 observations are basically small farmer households. So the estimate on farm business income that you will be getting is an average of the income of all the small farming households. So to sort of take care of this bias that creeps in because of the probability sampling method itself, or the fact or the number of small farming households are dominant in this household, in this village, what we generally tend to do is to carry out a stratified simple random process. So then what we do is we divide the entire village into 3 subgroups here. One is we have a group of small farmer households. We have another subgroup of marginal farmer households, and we have a third subgroup of large farmer households. Then based upon these subgroups that we have carried out, we carry out a stratified simple random sampling so that each and every person in each of these subgroups also has an equal chance of getting selected in the sample that we are collecting. And this is an equally, and that will be a representative sample as well. And understand the fact that in the case of sampling, what we are effectively trying to do is to show that an estimate is representative of the entire population. So whereas in the case of simple random sampling, we were oblivious to the fact whether we are taking into account all the subgroups that are also present in the population. In the case of stratified random sampling, we are ensuring that each and every member from each of these subgroups are also representative in the population. So this is all about stratified random sampling. But where does this difference with regard to quota sampling come up? Now, quota sampling is basically a non-probability sampling method. To take the same example that I have just given for farming households. Now, in quota sampling, we define a certain quota. So suppose, let us say that someone tells you that tell me what is the farm business incomes of small farming households. So what you would do is you would specify for yourself, or for the agency or the organization that has asked you to do the survey, to carry out to find out an estimate as to what is the average income of only the small farmers households. So what you would effectively do is you would do the same kind of subgrouping as in the case of stratified random sampling, but you would not take any sample from the large farmer households and the marginal farmer households. So your sampling would be entirely based only upon the small farmer households. So in this case, this is not a probability sampling because you are doing something very purposively. You know that you do not want to represent the entire population in that sense of the term, but you only want to study a small subgroup of that population, and you want to collect a sample from only that subgroup, which is basically a quota in the form of a small farmer household category. I hope my answer is clear. Girish, if you are still around, you can pose more questions to this for the same doubt that you had. We'll wait for more questions to come in. Good evening, Shivam. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put it. How many percentage of questions will be retained of the assignment for the final exam? Please go through your exam instructions that are available on NPTEL. I think 25% of your final questions will be from your assignments. So I suggest please go through your NPTEL exam related instructions that are there on the platform. You can also put these questions on the discussion forum. The TAs will be able to answer these questions. If I want to write any research paper in the field of modeling of air pollution, I hope you mean air pollution. Can you tell the procedure? Shivam, you need to be more specific regarding your question. I am not quite sure if I have got your question. Probably you're trying to ask that you want to write a research paper in the field of modeling in air pollution. Now, you will have to be very specific when you're writing a paper. So please be a little more specific so that you're asking by taking any example. I suggest you be more specific with regard to your question so that I can explain you better in this area. Shanti, Nazareth, topic is vast. So many questions could be framed. Yes, Shanti, the topic is vast. Research methods and development research methods is a very broad area. This is basically to give you a framework with regard to how to go ahead in your research. And there are various issues that can be taken up as part of this research. So what we have done in the development research methods course is only to give you a very basic framework so that you can orient yourself towards where you want to go with regard to your research. Feel free to put questions if you have in your mind regarding research methods that you want to take up in your field, and I'll be happy to answer them. Yes, Shivam, pollution research paper, as you must have seen, is the final part of the research writing process. And when you're talking about modeling, you want to carry out some kind of a modeling in air pollution. Obviously, you are looking at more data intensive work. You will have to first identify what kind of data that you want to use, whether that data is available with any source. You're looking at air pollution. You will have to be you will have to specify your geographical location that you want to work on. So I suggest you first look at, your data sources. What is it? What is the data that you want to look at? Whether you want to look at vehicular pollution, whether you want to look at air pollution that is emerging out of factories and various other forms of industrial waste, or you want to look at some other form of air pollution. These are things that you have to have clarity about before moving on to writing a paper in the field of modeling in air pollution. This is a vast area of research, and you need to do your homework with regard to the first few steps as to what you want to do in that area. I hope I have answered your question. Students, please feel free to post your questions. We'll be here for a few more minutes. Uh, you want to pose questions with regard to framing of your research ideas. I do receive a number of emails on research topics. You want to discuss your research topics and understand which are the methods that you want to apply for your research topics. Please feel free to post them on the YouTube live session. Shanti is asking, many conferences are held for ICT mode teaching, etc. What exactly I can prepare the paper for presentation? I'm sorry, Shanti, I'm not quite sure if I'm getting your question. Is it a research methods related question? You want to work on ICT technology or ICT? I hope you mean information and communication technology mode of teaching. Do you want to take that up as a research area? Is it a research methods related question? I'm not quite sure I got your I'm understanding your question. Can you please be a little more specific? Is it on secondary data I have to depend on? See, you are asking a question regarding presenting a paper for a conference. I would rather that you ask a question on what is the research topic that you have on your mind? Is a research topic that you have on your mind related to information and communication technology, or the implementation of information and communication technology method which I should follow, method you should follow for your research? What is And if you go back to the very first lecture of the development research methods course, you would see that I spoke about reflections on development studies. The very first thing that you need to identify before coming to the stage of writing a research paper is what is your research problem. Whether you have already specified and identified your research problem, then we can come to the methods part. Once the research problem is identified, we can then think about research objectives and the research questions. Or if you have a hypothesis in mind, if there is clarity on these points in you, then we can move on to the methods part. Okay, So now I get the seed of the idea that is there with you. You're probably looking at online teaching and its effect on students. Okay. So you want to take up the study, the research problem that you have in your mind is that online teaching and what are the effects of online teaching on students. Now, let me ask you to be a little more specific on this research problem that you have highlighted. Whether you want to look at school students, you want to look at technology institutions, whether you want to look at college students, what is the context in which you're asking this question? Because we have a context now of the pandemic where everything has gone online, teaching has gone online, and the effect that it is having on students. Can you be a little more specific, Shanti? Whether you want to look at schooling, school students, effect of online teaching on school students, or you're looking at effect of online teaching on college students or technology institutions, and that will decide what is the method that we want to take up for your study. Okay. If you're looking at college students, then one of the first things that you would probably need to do is to carry out some kind of a survey, an online survey among college students with regard to certain outcomes. So with regard to, their learning abilities as far as online teaching is concerned, there are, I'm sure, various kinds of standardized questionnaires that you can use for canvassing among the college students. You will have to reach out to the college students with the help of meticulously designed questionnaires where you ask them very specific questions with regard to their learning capabilities when teaching has gone online. Now, based upon the data that you have collected, you can always ask qualitative questions in your questionnaire. You can have a more structured questionnaire if you want to do a more quantitative study. You can also carry out perception-based studies. What is the perception among students with regard to after teaching has gone online? So it may be you can carry out a quantitative study or you can carry out a qualitative study as well, depending upon, again, what are the competency levels of students that you are trying to measure here. And there are many studies in the field of psychology and development studies where such kind of questionnaires and surveys have been carried out. And I would urge you to look at some of these questionnaires. How many questions minimum? Now, that is hard to say because if you're carrying out a master's level dissertation, then obviously we do not look for a very big sample. But if you are trying to carry out a PhD research here, then you better take up a standardized questionnaire. And standardized questionnaires can have, questions ranging from 20 to about 200. And that depends upon how many variables that you want to study. So these are certain things that needs to be decided depending upon what is the level at which you are carrying out this research. But if you are carrying out a market survey kind of a thing, some organization has asked you to test the competency levels of students at the graduation level in a certain locality or a certain state or a certain a certain block in a certain district, then obviously you will have to be more specific with regard to the number of colleges that are there. So depending upon the level at which you want to pitch your study, the number of questions can be decided on. Suppose some software company approaches you and says that, okay, we have developed an app kind of a thing where you want to test whether this app can be implemented for these college students who have smartphones, who have Android phones. And then you want to then carry out a certain survey in a certain locality and see whether you can pose certain questions very specific to that app that can be introduced in that locality. Then you can have more specific questions and a minimum number of questions. But there is nothing like a minimum and a maximum. But of course, there are standardized questionnaires because when we canvas questionnaires, our objective is obviously to do some kind of an analysis, a robust analysis, whether you want to carry out some kind of an econometric analysis or a statistical analysis. There are a number of variables, a minimum number of variables that you need to take up, when you're carrying out certain kinds of regression analysis. Let us say, to begin with, at least 5 variables that you can study. Okay, I have a question on the Google Doc here. Ajit Verma, he's asking, what is the appropriate number of sample size and how do we select the sample size? Now, the sample size selection is something that we often come across in, sample selection, whichever field that we belong to. Usually, the sample size determination, we follow the Cochrane's formula for determination of the sample size. There is a statistical formula that helps us determine the sample size. But if I have to give you a very top of the head answer with regard to sample size, usually when we are carrying out sample surveys, the we have a benchmark of collecting at least 15% as the sample size, for carrying out any kind of a why are we collecting a sample? Ultimately, we are collecting a sample because we want it to be representative of the population, and we want to be able to carry out certain statistical analysis for the sample that we are collecting. So the benchmark that we usually have is about 15% of the population size. Whatever is the number of your population, say you have 100 population, so 15%, 15 observations will give you a good sample which is representative of the entire population. This is the benchmark that we take. But often students ask me as to when we are carrying out a study at a district level, or let us say we are carrying out a study where the population is infinite, how do we then collect a sample? Now, when the population is infinite, that is where we use the Cochrane's formula of determining the sample size. Let us say I'm carrying out a study in which I want to do a nutrition study of children under the age of 5 years, and there are 5,000 children in that locality. So how do I then carry out the sample size calculation? So I simply follow the Cochrane's formula of calculating the sample size based upon the confidence interval and the number of the number of children that I have in that strata that I am taking up. Now, based upon that, it will give me a number. Let us say that it gives me a number of 1,000 children. I want to do a survey among 1,000 children so that it can be representative of all the 5,000 population that I am studying. So then I sit down to do a questionnaire and I canvass my questionnaire. हाँ हाँ. Hello. Okay, so we are back. There was a slight technical glitch. Girish is asking, can you please let me know what is the major things to consider in selecting areas of research? Now, this is something that we often come across in the field of development research and development studies. Research students often ask about how to come up with areas of research. Now, I will just give you the answer that I often give to my own students with regard to areas of research. If you are a student of the social sciences, irrespective of whichever discipline that you are coming from or whatever is your disciplinary orientation, I often urge students to take up problems that disturb you the most, problems that are very close to your heart, and you can put your heart and mind into that, into researching that topic for a longer duration. Often when we are doing PhD research or we are guiding students for PhD research, where students spend about 4 to 6 years in researching a particular topic, it is impossible for students to keep their mind on research if they choose a topic which does not interest them. And interest does not only come from what are the prospects of future prospects with regard to that research area that you have taken up, but interest mostly comes from a research area that really disturbs you, and that for which you are willing to put your energy and spend time to reveal what is contained in that area that disturbs you. So I would suggest that you take up a research area. If you're doing PhD research and that is your area of interest, that is the matter that interests you currently, Girish, then I would suggest you take up an area which really disturbs you and you would like to put your energy for the next 4 to 6 years. Whereas if you're taking up research where certain organizations are guiding you and you have a set objective in mind, where there are various organizations that tell you that you have a specified time duration during which you need to finish your research project, then obviously you are guided by the organizational interests as to what topic you want to take up. But with regard to your own research area, if you have a stipend, if you have government support to carry out your research, I would suggest these are the things that you should keep your mind on. Having said that, the other thing that to keep in your mind when you are deciding on research area is, of course, the data availability. Suppose you may be interested in carrying out a research which disturbs you, but you do not have the data to work on, and there are various kinds of time constraints with regard to your research. Then obviously you will have to go for the literature available and the data available in that area where you can work on. Currently, during the pandemic period, social science research has suffered quite a lot because of the absence of field work. Now, these are also times during which students are procrastinating a lot on what should be the area of research that I should work on. And this is also one of the reasons why the lecture on secondary data was introduced to all of you. Social sciences, development studies is also an area where there is a presence of secondary data. Large amounts of secondary data are available with various databases, and it is up to the student to explore which kind of database you want to use for your research area. So the second thing to keep in mind when you are deciding on your area of research is the availability of literature and the availability of data. I hope I have answered your question, Girish. Okay, so if there are no more questions, then probably we can wind the session. And if you have more questions, please feel free to put it on the discussion forum or write to me in my email, and I will try my best to answer your questions. Can we have another session after some days? I am not sure about this, Ruchi. I will speak to the CET team, our technical people, and then get back to you on this. Rekha, if there are no more questions, can we wind up the session? Thank you, Ruchi. Thank you. Please put your questions on discussion forum or write to me on my email if you have any specific queries regarding your research work. I will try my best to answer. Yeah, Rekha, I think we can close the discussion if there are no more questions.